y'all, it's Lola the Manager, your new favorite project manager, tech professional, and entrepreneur. And this is episode 11 of Life as a Project Manager. In my last video, I created a mock project where we are managing a restaurant website launch. And we took information from the brief to develop a project charter. In today's video, we're gonna keep the same energy with that restaurant website launch, and we're gonna create a project schedule. However, before we can build out that schedule, we need to talk about a work breakdown structure. So the work breakdown structure is exactly how it sounds. It takes the total scope of work and then breaks it down into manageable chunks of tasks that can get done. Not only that, it actually lists these tasks in a hierarchical order of what should get done first down to what should get done last, like what makes sense. And it serves as the foundation for planning, scheduling, and estimating work. In short, the work breakdown structure defines what needs to be done. Now, in a work breakdown structure, there's something called work packages. This is the lowest level of the work breakdown structure. They represent the smallest tasks and activities that need to get done in order for the entire set of tasks, the package, to be complete. Work packages serve as building blocks used to develop the project schedule and assign resources. In short, a work package is the individual units of work that need to be done. And now we have the project schedule. The project schedule is a timeline. The project schedule is a timeline that depicts when specific activities or work packages have to be performed. It shows the planned start date, the planned end date, the duration, as well as it sequences the project task of what makes sense to come first, second, third, fourth, and so on. The project schedule is derived from the work packages identified in the work breakdown structure and their estimated durations and dependencies. In short, the project schedule determines when and in what sequence will the work be done. Now, I bring up these three because they're interrelated. Like I stated earlier, the work breakdown structure provides the structure and breakdown of the project's work in manageable chunks. The work packages are the bottom tier of the work breakdown structure, and they serve as the basis for creating the project schedule as a whole. I talk with my hands. I hope that doesn't bother y'all. The durations, dependency, and resource assignments for each work package are used to develop the project schedule. The project schedule then integrates all the work packages and their timeline, presenting a comprehensive view of the project's activities over time. Now, I know you're sitting here like, Lola, what is all that? That just sounds like a lot of book jargon. And the reason why I use that language, just so you're familiar with it, if you find yourself in an interview or in a conversation where people are trying to test, what do you know? But now let's get into the real meat and potatoes. The whole premise of the project schedule is to break down every single thing that needs to get done. Once you know what needs to get done, then you go to who's responsible for doing that. After you figure out who's responsible, you go into how long does this actually take? Then we find out when we need to start and when we need to end. That's like a basic level of the project schedule. But then there's other things we need to consider. Remember, in our project charter, we wanted to know the success criteria. We also need to know dependencies. That's a word that you heard me saying a lot when I was providing those definitions earlier. Dependencies are exactly what they sound like. There are tasks that are dependent on another task to be done before it can get started. Let's think about building a house. We cannot start adding the roof if we have not laid down the foundation. So the roof task is dependent on the foundation task. So in projects, you have these dependencies in which certain tasks are dependent on the other. What I want to point out is everything that I'm sharing in this video is based on traditional project management. In the Scrum environment, we do not abide by schedules. All we have are our epics, features, and stories. We place them in sprints, we execute them, and we continuously iterate that process. We are not slaves to a schedule. Don't fight me, fight the methodology. Now, if you know anything about me, you know I have to give you examples. So what we're gonna do is jump on the computer, we're gonna recap the project brief and charter from our last video, and then I'm gonna show you how we actually turned all that information into an actual schedule. Let's go. All right, so before we go jumping into the schedules and the work breakdown structures and the work packages, let's recap just so we have a baseline of what we're working with. So in my last video, we walked through the project brief and the project charter. We know that the brief is what you're given when you are assigned this project to manage, and it has very high level overview of what this project is about. It has some objectives and deliverables, major milestones are in there, very basic information. And then we took that information and we probably had a couple conversations with some people so we can go develop this project charter. The project charter is a formal document that provides us the purpose, the justification, the why behind this entire project. It tells a story. It provides us the objectives and success criteria. So it lets us know what is it that we're trying to accomplish, and then how do we know that we are successful in accomplishing that. It had the high level requirements, which were things that the stakeholders feel like they wanted, they needed. It was like their non-negotiables, their must-haves. It provided us the scope. It gave us our different stakeholders. So it told us pretty much everyone that'll be involved in the curation of this project, from the person that initially wanted this done down to who's actually going to utilize the websites. It did provide us some assumptions and risks, as well as who is the assigned project manager and what authority do they have over the project, and last but not least, the budget and timeline. So it didn't get into the weeds of how the budget is allocated. It was just more so, there's how much we got, make it work. We take all that information and we go develop a project schedule. Before I go into that project schedule task, I wanna reiterate what I said about the work packages. Work packages are the bottom level of the work breakdown structure. The things that need to get done in order for us to see that that package is complete. Packages can be categorized in milestones. It really depends on how you and your company break things down. But if you look at them as milestones, in order for this milestone to be completed, there's a lot of different tasks and activities that need to take place in it. And once that is considered done, we will say that milestone is complete. We'll say the project is complete. Let's get into that work breakdown. I want to start by saying your company should provide you a template for how they want things to look. This is a template I just made up on the fly. Typically, every company that I've been part of, they've given me something, which is why I kind of have like a baseline of what it kind of looks like. However, I want you to know that it may not look like this, and that is okay. It may not have all these elements, and that is okay. That is okay. One of the reasons why I broke it down like this is because I wanted you to see the correlation between all the information that was in the charter and the schedule and how it all ties together. So one of the first things you see is we have our top row, row 1. This is pretty much how we are organizing and structuring our work breakdown structure. This is going to include our work packages, who's responsible for the task, the duration, start and end dates, dependencies, and then I added deliverables, acceptance criteria, and risk and assumptions. In another video, we'll talk about developing a risk management plan, which is why outlining these risk and assumptions here help us later, but we're not gonna talk about that right now. So there are 6 major milestones in this project. We have the project initiation and planning, website design, website development, content creation and SEO, testing and quality assurance, and then the launch and deployment, right? So these are the different phases or milestones of the project. Now we can look at them as a work package because within them, there are things that need to get done. In order for the project initiation and planning package per se to finish, we would need to develop the project charter and scope definition, do resource planning and team assembly, project schedule and timeline creation. So right now, if we are looking at this as a full project, we are still in phase 1. We have not done anything to make our way to the other phases of this project because right now we're doing the schedules, breakdown structure, work packages. So we cannot look at this as something that is complete, as a package that is complete already. As you can see, each milestone is numbered, and then we have categories underneath them, and depending on where it is, we have specific categories underneath that. This is why we call it a package. There's different elements underneath the main task that needs to get completed. We go into the roles. This is what the role is. It really doesn't matter who is doing it, meaning I don't need to assign it to Lola or Tom or Ashley or Mark. We just need to know the name of that role. Then in our next column, we have the duration. How long does it take to do this? It's essential to have the duration. Just because you know the start and end date in which something should be completed, that doesn't mean it can be completed until we look at how long it takes to complete said task. Project initiation and planning was allocated 15 days to be completed. Is that realistic? Is that feasible? Once you figure out if it is feasible, then you can see how that plays into our full start and end dates. So we know as a whole, it's a duration of 15 days, but there's 3 things that need to get done. Each of those things, they take a certain amount of days. So we're allocating 5 days for each of those. And as you can see, the date changes for that, but it all falls within the initial start and end date. So I hope you guys are following along. The next column that I really want to focus on is the dependencies. As I stated in the video, dependencies are what this task is relying on in order for it to be completed. The project charter, it does not have a dependency. So it is not waiting on anything in order for it to get started. That's why it says none. However, to begin resource planning and start assembling teams and stuff, we can't start doing that until we finish that project charter and have defined the scope. What are we planning? Why are we even looking at resources when we don't even know what we're doing? You get what I'm saying? Now we're going to deliverables. A lot of people think that the deliverables is the final thing that needs to get delivered to the end user. So this website is a deliverable. That's true. However, there are tons of deliverables within a project. So in the project initiation and planning phase, there are 5 different deliverables that are needed. We need a charter, the scope document, resource plan, and the project schedule, which means we can't even move to the next phase without making sure that we have all those deliverables. That's what a lot of people don't understand. They are managing multiple things within a project. Okay, so now we have the acceptance criteria. So every deliverable has something called an acceptance criteria. How do we know that this deliverable has been delivered correctly or successfully? Did we do what we were supposed to do? Did we deliver what we were supposed to deliver? Now, when we say project charter and scope document, that's a deliverable. How do we know that we've created a successful project charter and scope document? The answer is, does it clearly define the objectives, the requirements, and the boundaries for this project? You as a project manager, you know these different elements because the project initiation and planning phase, that's your zone of genius. But then when we start getting to website design, website development, you're over here trying to figure out like, I don't know any of this stuff. How would I know if it has that? For instance, wireframes and mockups. If you're not in the design world, you have no idea what a wireframe or a mockup is. So when you look at the acceptance criteria and you see it says consistent with project requirements and brand guidelines, you don't know what that means. That is not your responsibility. You know who's responsible for that? The website designer. They are responsible for their acceptance criteria. And if they don't meet it, by the time it makes it to our end user, we'll end up finding out because the end user knows what it should be or what it should look like. Or, you know what, I shouldn't say the end user, I would say the stakeholder, the person who put in this project on. Each role has a set of tasks that they need to do and items that they need to deliver. And in order to deliver it successfully, they need to make sure that it is in alignment with the acceptance criteria. Hope that makes sense. Now, for that last column, risk and assumptions, we took this from our project charter. If we go back, we have a list of project assumptions and risks. In every project, we assume that we can do certain things or have access to certain things. That's what we assume. In a perfect world, that's how we'd like it to go. But on top of those assumptions, we also have risks. So there are risks that we have to identify because sometimes we just can't have a perfect world. So yes, I may want a wireframe and a mock-up, but there's a risk that the software that we utilize stops working. You get what I'm saying? So it's those type of things that we are calling out, and we're not calling out every single assumption and every single risk because at the end of the day, there's assumptions and risks for the entire project. we are calling out main ones that significantly impact the project deliverables as a whole. Now, when we go back to our work breakdown structure and we look at these risks and assumptions, we have a set of risks and assumptions for the entire work package as a whole. So as you see, there's an assumption. We're going to have timely access to stakeholder input and availability of required resources. However, when we look at the individual tasks that need to be completed, when it comes to developing that scope document, we risk having scope creep. When it comes to developing that resource plan or assigning team members, we may have resource constraints. So if you're at a company where you have someone on your team that's also working on multiple projects, that can be a constraint for them. They may not have the time to fully invest into your project. For instance, I have creatives, designers, copywriters that are doing multiple projects at once. And we are constantly looking at their capacity to see if they can take on another project. We can't just give it to them. We have to see if it's going to work. So there's resource constraints. When it comes to the project schedule, we have the assumption that we are making the most accurate effort estimates, meaning everything that we are guesstimating is very close to accurate. And so that's just an example. And like I said, this information comes in handy when it's time to develop a risk management plan and do a risk analysis. And this is a quick overview or breakdown of a work breakdown structure or a project schedule. This is not the project plan. This is not a Gantt chart. All these other terms that you hear in the project management world. This is just the bare bones of what has to get done. Now let's go back to the main video. That is everything. That's all things project schedule. I hope that this wasn't too much for you, and I really hope that you actually learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. If you are in project management or you started studying, you're in a class, you're trying to get your degree, whatever the case may be, is any of this familiar? Is this what you're learning in class? Let me know. I want to make sure that I'm on the same page as you guys, because why would I put out information that is no longer valid? You feel me? Of course, thank you for being here with me. You could be anywhere in the world right now, but you'd rather be here leveling up and doing some professional development. I appreciate that. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Lola the Manager. And as always, until next time.